Hello everybody, I'm Melissa and welcome back to Book Bar. Today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up, second half of the month. I read a total of 30 books with one DNF this month and one book that I am continuing into August, which is actually, this is the first month that happened. But I did read 14 books in the first half of the month, and I do discuss those in my mid-month wrap-up, which I will link up here. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get on into this. If you're new here, my wrap-ups, I obviously have a mid-month and an end-of-month, and I just discuss the books that I read in order of how I completed them, not necessarily how I started them. And then I have another video that I do my stats and my faves, so be on the lookout for that. But I did last month start a new TBR game where I had played TBR Uno, and obviously I had 7 cards, which ended up being more than 7. Actually, ended up being 7 exactly with my additions. But in the first half of the month, I did complete 4 of the prompts. I had Gifted, New Release, Mama Chooses, and Sports Romance. I completed those in the first half of the month. And then, so all I had left to do was my random number generator, 12 books from 12 friends, and recently hauled. And I did not finish 12 books from 12 friends, but I am currently still reading it. That's the book that I've carried over. I just didn't have enough time to get it done at the end of the month. But we're gonna go ahead and get on into this. The first book that I finished in the second half of the month was Moonshot by Alessandra Torre. This is a sports romance, baseball romance, which was fantastic because I don't read a lot of baseball romances and I love baseball. And so this followed Chase and Ty. Ty was the Batgirl for the Yankees because her dad was a Yankee and was the closer for the Yankees. And Chase Stern is like the bad boy of baseball and gets traded to the Yankees, and she like idolized him, and they end up striking up a relationship. Something happens that tears them apart. Now it's 4 years later and girls have been dying, and Chase is back on the Yankees and hoping to break the curse of girls dying. But it was great. I had a great time. I gave it 4.5 stars. There was cheating in this. That's why I gave it 4.5. It was very, very heavily in cheating. Then the next books I read for a vlog, I will link up in the cards. It was where Instagram chose my reading for a weekend. But the first book I read was Credence by Penelope Douglas, and this book was crazy. I can't really say much because it is best to go in blind. But basically, this girl, Tiernan, her parents commits a double suicide or a murder suicide. I don't know how it was. It doesn't really explain it, but it was either a double suicide or a murder suicide, and they just leave her when she's like 17, and she gets a call from her dad's stepbrother saying that she can come live with him and his 2 sons. She goes, she has a relationship with all 3 men. But she does pick one in the end. So it's not really it's not a polyamorous relationship, but she does have relations with all 3 men. But yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars because I didn't really love who she picked in the end. It was not who I would have chosen for her. Then the next book that I read was Blame It on the Champagne by Fiona Cole. This was a super fun marriage of convenience, boss employee, age gap, revenge plot, just all a bunch of buzzwords. I apologize if you can hear that stupid sound from my freezer. I have turned my ice maker off. I don't know what it is. I gotta call maintenance because it's really annoying me. But basically, Vera wants to work for her dad's company, and he's like, no, you're gonna get married to someone that I tell you to get married to, and you're gonna be a happy little wife. And she says, no, that's not good enough. So she uses her her grandmother's maiden name and starts to work for another shipping company, and she works under Nico, who is her boss, And Nico eventually finds out who she is and decides, hey, you have to get married and you don't want to. How about we get married to each other instead? And he has his whole reasons for doing it. And yeah, it was great. I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Then I read Wretched by Emily McIntyre, and this is probably my most disappointing book so far this year. I absolutely adore this cover. It is the most beautiful cover I own, and I hated this book. I probably should rate it lower than 3 stars, but I'm giving it 3 because the cover, and I've enjoyed this series, and I'm hoping that it goes back to its roots. But this was basically like written for TikTok. There's like all these, like, it's literally just evil people, evil sex. Like, it's not even hot. It was just, ugh, I hated this book. But I was really excited for it because it's the Wicked Witch of the West, supposedly. And so it's good girl, bad, or good boy, bad girl. But really, he was crooked too. Like, it was like bad and bad. So I did not love it. Unfortunately, I gave it 3 stars. And I don't really have much to say because not much happened other than her cooking drugs and them having all sorts of crazy sex, including a gun scene that was disturbing. Very disturbing. And I've read gun scenes that are not disturbing. I mean, for the most part, they're disturbing. This one was like, ick. Hated it. Then, next book that I finished was a new all-time fave. I absolutely adored this book, A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. This book is beautiful. I can't even really say a ton about it because it's another book that's great. It's just best to go in blind. But basically, this follows B and Whiskey. I'm not gonna tell you his name, but it follows them like over the course of like 10 or so years, and just everything that happens, and the push and the pull and the angst. And the last line will get you wanting to murder Candy Steiner, but she ended up writing a point of view from Whiskey in her 5-year anniversary edition, so you do get that. But oh, I absolutely adored this book. I gave it 5 stars. I can't even, there's not words that I can put in. I cannot put my love for this book into words. I adored it. I gave it 5 stars. Go read it. It's older. If you haven't read it, what are you doing with your life? Go do it right now. Then I had my DNF of the month, which was A Lady Chosen by Stephanie Lawrence. I actually saw the step back of this at my Half Price Books, and I almost bought it, but I was like, no, this book was awful. I could not get through it. Probably would have been better had I read it physically, but I didn't like it. I DNF'd it. I was just bored. I was going to be a 3-star, and I was just reading it to participate in the Rick Appreciation Society, which is hosted by Jenn from the Book Ravage and Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life. I was just reading it for that, and I just couldn't keep going. So I DNF'd it at about like 50, 60-ish%. And I don't regret it because it was probably going to be no higher than a 3-star. And life's too short to read boring books. So after deciding to DNF that, I picked up The Fox and the Hound by R.S. Gray. This is a super fun contemporary rom-com. It's Adam and Madeline, and they have a like not so meet cute where she thought it was a tiny puppy little dog, probably only gonna be like 30 pounds. Ends up being this huge giant, I can't even remember what type of dog, but he ends up really being really big, and he gets away and he starts to not attack but like just jump all over and play all over this new guy in town, Adam. Turns out Adam is actually the veterinarian, Adam Fox, so Fox and the Hound. And Adam and Madeline just can't stop being around each other, and eventually they decide to get together, and it was beautiful. I loved it. It was very funny. Fake dating at one point, like It literally, Grumpy Sunshine, Slow Burn, it's like all of my favorite things. But yeah, I give it 5 stars. It was so fun. Then the next book I picked up was Ransom by Julie Garwood. This is a Scottish Julie Garwood, which I think she does. A lot of hers are Scottish heroes. I really enjoyed it. Well, I give it 3.5 stars. It's very long. Like, it's almost 600 pages long. And there was just so much going on. There was 2 romances that I think had you taken one of the romances out, it would have made it go a little bit faster. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, and it's not one that I'm ever really gonna like remember reading, and I will probably end up unhauling it. But I did enjoy it. Like, it wasn't as bad as The Lady Chosen, because at least there was a little bit more action than there was in that book. But still, 3.5 stars. Then the next book that I finished was My Random Number Generator, and it was Meant to Be by Jennifer Probst. I read this for my Summer of Self Pub vlog. I will link it up here. This was a fun secret baby or surprise baby romance that actually, like, the surprise baby didn't bother me because they knew what they did when they did it, and they knew it was going to be a possibility. So it wasn't like, oh, we banged a bunch of times and now we're pregnant. Oh no. It was like, oh, we banged, we didn't have protection, you could be pregnant. So it wasn't a surprise when she ended up pregnant. But I enjoyed it. It wasn't like super memorable or anything, so I gave it 4 stars just because it was, I mean, I don't know that I'll remember it past this one experience. It's not a book I'll reread. But I had a good time. It was Kiara and Sebastian, and if you want all my full thoughts and more about it, click the link. Then the next book that I finished was The Affair by Gianna Darling. This is the first book in her Evolution of Sin series. I am trying to make my way through like Gianna Darling's backlist, and this was one of her shorter books, so I just decided to pick it up on a whim, thinking I would finish it really fast, and I did not, because I didn't really love it. I knew, obviously, knowing it's called The Affair, I knew it would have cheating in it, but I just didn't love it. You can definitely tell that Gianna's grown as a writer, because this was one if not her first, one of her first published books. But basically, Giselle goes to Cabo for a week, and on her way to Cabo, she meets this man on the plane named Sinclair, and he suggests that they have a holiday affair. Turns out he has a girlfriend back home who he calls Darling. We don't know who it is, although I know who it is just from other people have read the series and one of the spin-off series. So I know who his darling is. Basically, it's just an age gap, cheating romance. It was really all sex. Like, there was not really much plot. I had a good time with it. I gave it 3 stars. I will continue just because I do want to read them like this. So there's like 2 other spin-offs of this, and I kind of want to read all 3, and I would like to read them in order because some people have said it is like, you don't have to read them in order, obviously, but you do get more of the backstory of everything that happens in the other ones. You get a little bit more from this trilogy. So yeah, I gave 3 stars. I'll continue with The Secret, and I don't remember what the last one is, but I'll read them eventually. Then I finished Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This, again, was for the Summer of Self Pub vlog, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. The only thing that I had with it was a little, like, it just was a little too long. It's fake dating, grumpy sunshine, small town, single parent-ish. She's a guardian. Dislike to love. Like, it had all of, again, just all of the tropes that I love, but it was a little long. Naomi flees her wedding and gets a call from her stupid sister Tina, and Tina's like, hey, I need your help. So she goes to this small town called Knockemout, and there she sees in like the diner a picture with a sign with her picture saying do not serve. She goes in and she's like, that's not me, that's my sister, I'm completely different. There she meets this grumpy guy, Knox, who is like get out of here, Tina. And she's like, I'm not Tina, I'm Naomi. Tina ends up stealing Naomi's car and all of her stuff and leaves Naomi with her daughter Waylay. And then Naomi has to figure out life in the small town of Knockamout and what to do with Waylay and all of the things. And it was great. I gave it 4.5 stars. My only complaint was it was a little too long. It did not have to be 500 and something pages. I mean, I listened to the audiobook, but it didn't have to be a 16-hour audiobook either. So, but I had a good time. There was just a little bit too much with, like, the external plot at the end that, like, just brought, I mean, sometimes I feel like you don't have to have a third act conflict, or third act breakup when there's an external conflict, and this had both. And I hate that because then it takes away from them getting back together. So that bugged me a little bit, but 4.5 stars still. Great book. Definitely deserves the hype it's getting. Then the next book I finished was Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. This I did not rate because I don't know how I feel about it. It was basically just a lot of killing and walking and killing and walking. And it's a high fantasy. And that's not in my wheelhouse. It's not my genre. I was reading it for a buddy read with Mel from Eleanor Reads. It was for her Patreon. I was reading it with them. And the only reason I completed it is because I had it on audiobook and I had bought it and I was like, well, might as well finish it. But there's just a lot of killing and walking and killing and walking. And then the end happened and I was like, whoa, that was wild. But the first 90% of the book was not great. So I'm not going to rate it because it's just not my usual thing. Then I finished Rushed by Aurora Rose Reynolds. This is another small town romance. I've really been in the mood for small town and sports romances. That's just been my jam this summer. But small town romance where a girl, she gets, why can't I think of her name? Sybil gets left like right before her wedding. Her fiance is like, I can't marry you. For reasons. It very much makes sense why he could not marry her. And she understands in the end why he could not marry her. But she goes on this trip to the Montana where she meets a guy named Tanner who is her like guide on this like tour. But they end up being partnered together and they end up falling for each other on this tour. And yeah, it was great. It was a good book. And it was very short. So it was kind of rushed as in the name. But I still give it 4 stars. I will continue with the series because it's about the other 2 owners of this company that Tanner owned. And I enjoyed it. It had a little bit of a mystery to it, but not to where it was like scary. But yeah, I had a good time. I gave it 4 stars. Then I finished Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the 3rd book in the David Bad trilogy. I absolutely adored this trilogy. It was fantastic. It was a 5-star trilogy. This was a 5-star book. I can't say anything about it really because it's the 3rd book in a trilogy that all connect. But basically in the 1st book, Nari summons this Jinn voyeur, Dara, and he whisks her away to the city of David where all sorts of political intrigue and everything happen. There's political plot, there's love, there's all sorts of fun stuff. It was great. I gave 5 stars, of course. Loved it. Then I finished my reread of A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas for the SJM Along. I absolutely adored this. We talked about this for 3 hours on our SJM Along live show. I will try to link it above or below. But this is my favorite Sarah J. Maas book of ever. I think this and Silver Flames. We'll see when I reread Silver Flames how I feel about it. I love this so much. I mean, look at all those. Look at all those fabulous little tabbies. It's just so beautiful. But I can't really say anything about it because it's the 2nd book in a series. Feyre goes to the Fey lands and is embroiled in all of the Fey politics. But yeah, I loved this so much. Like I said, we gushed about it for 3 hours. Like, there was no negative discussion revolving this book as a whole. It's beautiful. 5 stars, of course. Then I read Voyeur by Fiona Cole. This is the first book in the Voyeur series. It follows, I can't think of her name, and I didn't write it down because I just didn't have time. But it follows a girl. This is an HCAP student teacher romance with a lot of heavy topics. It's Oakland. That's her name. Oakland. Oakland learns that her parents spent her money for college, so she has to get a job, and her best friend suggests she works at her uncle's club. It's not really a sex club, but it is. But it's called Voyeur, where people go and watch other people do things. And they can pay for their time and everything, and I can't think of the hero's name, but he goes in and he sees her, and he like buys her time, and then she comes to class the next day and he realizes that that is his student, and they try to stay away from each other, but they cannot, and she really helps him. He had a lot of sexual trauma from his past, and she helps him learn how to deal with it and understand it. And it was really shockingly beautiful, because I just thought it was a sex club. I did not realize all that was going to go into it, but I really enjoyed it. He gave it 4.5 stars. I think 4.5 stars. Maybe only 4. Because the third act, again, I had a lot of issues with third act conflicts happening really late in the book, like at the 90% mark, and it rushing to get them back together. I need a little bit more. I always need a little bit more. I can't just have them like rushed back together. So, but I did still really enjoy it. Then the last book that I finished in the month was A Night to Surrender by Tessa Dare. This book was boring. It's my least favorite Tessa Dare I've read so far. But it's a great setup for this Middle Cove series, and I'm really excited for that. But yeah, I just did not love this book. Like, the character, Bram, was a wet blanket. Like, I could not stand him. And Susanna she was cool. I enjoyed her. She was very much like, go get him, girl. But it was just, okay. I give it 3.5 stars. Kind of boring. Not anything memorable. But I am excited for the next book in the series, which I will be reading in August. But yeah, that is the 16 books that I have completed and 1 DNF. The book that I the book that I am holding over is The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I just didn't have time to get it done. It took me a really long time to read The Affair, so I didn't start that till really late, and then I had to get through A Night to Surrender and Akamath, and those took a lot of time, and I don't have an audiobook for The War of Two Queens, so I'm reading it physically or on my Kindle, so it's just taking a little bit longer. But I still had a great time. I'm still enjoying it. Hopefully I finish it soon. But yeah, that is my whole wrap up for July. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite book of the month was. You'll find out mine in my Stats and Faves, which will be out on Monday. It'll be the next video after this. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps me out. And I will talk to y'all in the next one. Bye!